assessment? Because ES Vic Rodriguez had handed in his letter of resignation as executive secretary. And people were scratching their heads last Friday as it began to become clear that as he was going to transition from executive secretary to presidential chief of staff, he put together some piece of paper defining the powers of the presidential chief of staff, which, according to those who have seen the paper, took powers from the office of the ES and from the office of the presidential management staff and put them under the presidential chief of staff. Anong basa mo dyan? Pwede ba yun? Parang bago ka nag-resign, gumawa ka ng posisyon, tapos nag-resign ka, then kinuha mo yung posisyon, and then comes the presidential legal advisor. Teka, cannot be.
That's the irony there. He resigned, but he created another office. Having, as what you have said, it's sort of a hybrid between the power of the ES and the presidential management staff. So that's really ironic. And later on, mas yun nga po, in the long term talaga makaka-apekto in terms of stability, I think, of this administration. For me, in my assessment, it's going to be conflicting, and there will be a power struggle with regard to who will be the newly appointed executive secretary, as to how he will also manage the chief of staff of the president. And historically, when we intend to look at the executive secretary, he then, in the classical, by definition, is the alter ego of the president, right? So in terms of the decision making, as if he or she is the little president. And we also have to take into consideration that it's really more also of the office that he intends to actually, manage, and at the same time, the people, all other members of the cabinet. It's really the management. But of course, you see, the chief of staff is really sort of a creation of this administration to sort of, look at the political side or the political aspect, more of looking at it as the quote-unquote, possibly the gatekeeper, if you may, aside from the executive secretary. So there will be, I think, creation of a more conflict as compared to resolving the situation as it is, because mamomroblema dyan yung ilalagay mo na executive secretary.
I think it would be naive to assume or hope that an executive secretary will be apolitical, because by virtue of the fact that they're the alter ego of the president, they're required to deal both with political allies and political opponents. So the office will have to require someone not only with a legal administrative understanding of Malacanang, but also at least a capability of working with both allies and enemies. It doesn't necessarily mean na loyal laptop siya ng presidente, because ultimately certain political choices, especially in legislative agenda, will require dealing with political opponents or people from other parties. The executive secretary needs to be that person.
So you need to know you need to be a lawyer, you need to be a politician, but you also need to be a manager. And but wasn't that the reason why they came up with the position of secretary to the cabinet that Carlo Nograles once held? Because the idea was he would be the one coordinating among cabinet members. Kasi parang now I appreciate that position, because executive secretary, I mean, puputi ang buhok mo dyan trying to just go through the papers, sifting through the political agendas of people.
Well, that is the function of high office, I guess. You can perhaps create additional offices to assist such officials. But as long as the laws of the land are clear that central authority, when it comes to these functions, are assigned in this specific office, if we respect the law, we have to focus on those specific offices. Creating new offices willy-nilly, in my perspective, is potentially perverting the rule of law.